For the past 2 leagues, my favorite league starter has been Ice Trap Occultist. This build is great at leveling and is a pretty strong build for league start environments. With patch 3.25, the build has changed a decent amount, and is still just as strong and has better survivability as well. Depending on the changes to T17s, it might be able to do them, but that's really never been the goal of this build. This build is made to be a great leveler and to get you all the way to T16s and 4 Void Stones. With that out of the way, let's talk about the changes to this build in this league. Last league, Annihilating Light was moved to Uber Exarch, making it much more annoying to get early if you were switching to the staff version of this build. On top of that, the amount of res needed and losing shield charge didn't feel that great. When I first played this build, the endgame version of the build was during Affliction and you were using Oath of the Magi, so res really wasn't an issue. It's possible to still play the staff version of this build, but realistically the non-staff version is just better, especially for a league starter. Instead of using a staff, I now opt for using +1 wands and shields early and then swapping to a void battery when starting to work towards the end game. This way we still get a decent amount of damage and also get an extra source of life and res on the shield while still getting to use shield charge. With the removal of Divine Blessing in this league, this build did lose an aura, and also with the huge nerf to Hatred, basically making it only good for Fizz conversion builds now, we no longer use either of them. But it's not all bad news. Since we lost Hatred, we can use Zealotry instead of having it as our Divine Blessing aura, and I've decided to start playing EBMOM as an extra defensive layer. This allowed us to drop Determination and pick up Discipline while still having a decent amount of mana left, making it so I can add supports to Skitterbots to offset a decent amount of the damage lost from Hatred. The pathing on the tree has changed as well, opting for more sources of mana reservation and more life and energy shield. For the bandit quest, we're helping Alira for the easy res, but I'm not 100% sure you need it. If you really wanted to, you could just skip it or opt for any of the other options, but taking Alira will make gearing a little bit easier and make leveling feel pretty smooth. Overall, this build is just as strong as it was last patch, but will be perfectly fine if you find yourself wanting to play something different on league start. For the leveling on this build, it's pretty simple. You'll play Freezing Pulse with Frost Bomb and a Holy Flame Totem all the way up to level 28 when you can buy Ice Trap from the library quest. Just make sure that you have a chance orb to be able to buy Ice Trap before getting there. There's a few different ways that you can get a chance orb if you didn't get one to drop normally. From that point on, it's super smooth up until maps. Ice Trap does a ton of damage while being able to front load your damage on bosses. It makes it super easy. Just make sure that you're upgrading your wands throughout the campaign, and in Act 4, make sure you do the added cold craft on your wand. Once you get a 4 link, the second half of the campaign should be fairly trivial, and early maps will be fine. Once you're ready to swap to EB, the only thing that you really need to make that swap is Tinkerskin and potentially Eye of Malice. An important thing to note is that when you're using Eye of Malice, you want to make sure that you are close enough to the boss that you're applying your negative 20 cold res that you get from being a cultist, and you also are applying Frostbite. Eye of Malice increases the cold res of enemies, however when the cold res of the enemy is negative, it increases it to be more negative. If you aren't close enough to a boss and don't curse it, you could be griefing your own damage when using Eye of Malice. If you continue investing into the build, the next step is to get a Void Battery and the Amulet. Both of them I expect to be fairly cheap. Just make sure when you're searching for the replica Dragon Fang that you are searching for one with Ice Trap gems, not just a random one. And from that point on, you should be capable of doing Uber Elder and Maven. Now, if you want to continue investing in the build further, you can do so. Before you get Militant Faith, just make sure that you already have Relic Heshes. Do not go for Inner Conviction without them. Your frenzy charges account for nearly 30% of this build, and if you don't have Relic Heshes, you can't gain frenzy charges when using the jewel. Then from that point, it's just slight upgrades. You can get better jewels with double crit multi. You can get a Watcher's Eye, but that's pretty much it aside from the corruptions like +2 AoE and +2 traps on the chest and a +1 power charge Eye of Malice. Last thing I wanted to hit on was the playstyle of this build. With this build, you aren't super tanky, so you want to be playing slightly more conservative. Also, since your damage isn't instant because you're playing traps, even though you freeze things around you, you won't be able to play without zero caution. You will still have situations where you get one shot. However, with the recovery of this build and EBMOM, your damage taken is split between both your ES and your life, and you recover both of them when your traps are triggered. Also, this build is reliant on power charges. Versus bosses and during maps, you will not start with max power charges. So there is some ramp needed before you will be doing the max amount of damage. Once you get Relic Hesh, this is no longer an issue and something that you no longer need to worry about. This shouldn't be an issue given that bosses have high damage reduction at the start of fights anyway, but it's just something to think about. But that's pretty much it for this build. If you have any questions or run into any issues with it, feel free to leave a comment. I will make sure to check this video and try to help as much as I can. I hope everyone has a great league start, and if you like the video, leave a like, Thanks for watching.
The challenge begins. Your champion will fall. Replica. Exile the avalanche. The dark side fades.
Designed to challenge me for this realm.
Be gone.
The appointed time is here. Victory will be ours.
Disintegration. Cleansing. Annihilation.
I need more mana.
Disintegration. Cleansing. The fires of 1,000 suns. You do not have the strength, passion.
That may be, but I am not alone.
How pathetic. The fires of 1,000 suns. Disintegration. Cleansing. The fires of 1,000 suns. Annihilation. Disintegration. Cleansing. Annihilation. Incineration. Annihilation. Disintegration. Hatching. Supplies.